Welcome everybody to PinstripeChronicles. I am Tats. I am here with Donald and Rob. And leading off today, we'll bring up, we are already starting to see that the injury bug is alive and well, showed up at spring training just as scheduled. And we saw that Donaldson had a little sore shoulder. Sevy's, feeling some discomfort as well. We already know that Domingo's on the IL on the 60-day. What the hell is going on that these players just cannot, when they come to the Yankees, they can't stay healthy? Is it because that, Cashman just has this affinity for bringing in injured players? Or is it really something with the training staff and the way that they're training?
Well, I mean, Donaldson's obviously got an injury history. And Severino's not pitched in 3 years. So don't think we need Sherlock Holmes or Batman to investigate this particular crime. I mean, these guys are injury prone. It is what it is. When you jump into bed with injury prone people, especially one that's 36, you're going to get guys, you're going to get situations like this. Now, it is spring training. So I don't really want to harbor on this or belabor this point too much, because it can all change on a daily basis. Because I remember spring training last year, we were all freaking out because there was some odd activity with the Yankees and Aaron Judge. And the Yankees were kind of giving us, mixed signals and stuff regarding Judge's health. And it all looked a little bit shady. And Judge ended up being as healthy as he's ever been in his entire career. So we don't know. It's spring training. So I don't really want to belabor the point. I'm just saying that when you bring in a guy, especially with the money that we're paying Donaldson for his age and him playing the hot corner, there's a very good chance you're going to get hurt, especially considering he's been injured pretty much most of his career. So, I mean, that's on Cashman. And Severino, that's on Cashman as well, because I know that since we've been doing podcasts for well over a year, we have been begging Brian Cashman, literally begging on our hands and knees not to rush Severino, not to push him back, not to push him too quick. This guy has not pitched properly in years, and even when the Yankees signed him to a contract, which I still think was poor timing, because I don't think they did the proper necessary checks on his arm, and it turned out he was actually hurt. And since then, he's been hurt the whole way through. So I'm not convinced that we're going to get too much of Severino this year. I think he's going to be better in the bullpen, where he's not going to be too taxing on his arm. But we have to wait and see with Severino. One thing's for sure, you're not going to get a start every 5 days with Severino. You're going to have to rest him a lot, and hope that we got enough from Devi Garcia or Heel or Schmidt that can help lessen the load. But we don't really have a number 2 starter, so that's why we're having to discuss this. But yeah, that's my thoughts at the moment.
Yeah, I think that from what we're seeing from Garcia and Heel in the spring training so far, and it's just spring training. We talked about how you can't really look at the numbers, but if you look at their poise on the mound, I think that they are ready to step in when their number is called. So a little hiccup to Sevy, maybe he doesn't get, they hold him back for a couple of weeks. It's not going to really, dismantle the whole rotation and put us, in the negative. So I don't think that it's that dire of it. I think it's just a little soreness. They haven't pitched. He's coming off the injury. I think last year, putting him in the bullpen, I think it was to rush him back. If he's able to pitch in, AAA, then why not just have him in the bullpen, so throw in the same amount of pitches where he can help us, where he can help contribute. So bring him up to the major league level. Let's see where he's, let him get his workouts in that way. That I'm okay with. But to, just throw him right in the bullpen at the beginning of this year, I think that's not what's going to help. I think you have to have him as a starter.
I think a lot of it has to do with the lockout. Spring training got started late. And I can't help but think about what happened to Britton last year and Clark Schmidt. They both came back trying to rush themselves and
Yeah.
work fast, and they both got hurt. So maybe we're seeing the same thing with Severino. He knows that this is like a make or break year because he has an option for next year, and if he doesn't pitch well, it would not make any financial sense for the Yankees to pick it up. So it's very important to him that and to the team, of course, that he pitches this year. But they got to understand, going through the injuries that he's gone through, rushing him right back into it. And I understand why they're making him start, because you want to have him as a starter. He's penciled in as a number 2 starter right now, according to Lindsay Adler. So, I mean, that's high expectations. He's starting game 2 of the season, and they're expecting him to be the Sevy of old, which is unfair because Jameson Taillon is a perfect example that you cannot rush a guy back and expect him to be the same player he was pre-injury, because pre-injury Severino was looking like the next best thing to put on pinstripes. And then, he had, 2018 first half Sevy was unbelievable.
Lights out.
We have not seen a pitcher like him come up from our farm system since bullpen Jabba. And what other starter was doing it like he was for us, that came from our system? There weren't really many or any at all. So
that first half, he was a Cy Young contender.
Right. And, he obviously got hurt and everything just changed from that point on. Didn't pitch 2019 at all. Didn't pitch 2020 at all. And he pitched out of the bullpen exclusively last year. So 3 seasons, you've seen like 20 combined innings out of Severino or something like that. You cannot rush that back and be like, okay, you've got to give us, 30 something starts. That's not fair to the guy. That's why we've been always saying, make sure he's 100%. And I'm not surprised he's got soreness. If you haven't pitched fully in 3 years, you're going to get sore pretty quickly. So he's going to pitch a bullpen today, I think, and then he's scheduled to start again on Saturday. We'll see if that happens. If he doesn't need to start, don't start him.
Yeah.
Just keep having him throw bullpen sessions and see if he's okay. And then if you have to, give him one final kind of test before the spring ends, then do it. But do not rush it. And if you have to put him on the IL to start the season for 15 days, because I think it's back to 15 instead of 10 again, do it. Don't rush this, because we cannot afford to have him on the IL again for the entire season. If he has to miss the first couple of weeks or so, fine. That's okay. We can survive for 2 weeks. Make sure he's 100% ready to pitch before you throw him out there. That's what they've done so much to all these good players. They rush them back and they get hurt immediately afterwards. And I'm sick of it.
Well, I think that's also the problem is and we've said it many times, they don't evaluate their injuries and the progress of the injuries very well at all. It's either they rush them back, where it's just a matter of time where every pitch, every swing, you're wondering, is this going to put them back on the IL? And, or it's they're on the IL and we have no idea what's going on with these players. We saw for almost his whole contract, Ellsbury was MIA. Nobody knew what the hell was keeping him off the team. But the thing with Donaldson, I'm not too worried about. I think it's also, contributing to the late start to spring training, the rush of spring training. It was nothing structural. I think they just, they still have him doing his workouts. I think they just held him back for a game from actually in-game activity. So I'm not worried about him. And Domingo being on the IL is for the 60-day, that's a blessing, because we don't have to deal with that. And it's giving an opportunity for Garcia, Hill to progress. So I think that's
so. Just reading here the New York Post article. So Severino's expected to throw a bullpen session. He's obviously his start's been pushed. But there is concern about the quote unquote soreness, especially considering he's only pitched a couple of innings over the last 3 years. So, I mean, it is kind of normal, especially because he's not pitched in a long time, but it's something worth keeping out for, because whenever we hear Aaron Boone say, we're just getting him off his legs a little bit, or we're just resting him a little bit, a little bit can mean anything. And in normal general terms, a little bit isn't anything to worry about. But in Yankee terms, a little bit could also mean an entire season. So like, we have to kind of read between the lines here. One thing's for sure is the Yankees have major questions about their pitching now. I mean, Herman might have been a blessing for humanity, but in terms of the Yankees' rotation, it's not necessarily a blessing because
No, it's the optic
that's
of
another
his.
it's another arm down. I mean, and the Yankees haven't replaced them, so the Yankees are going to be relying on guys like Schmidt and Garcia and things like that, and Heel. Are they ready? I hope so, because the Yankees don't really have any other options. This is a long season. It's 162 games, so I think you have to be concerned. I'm afraid.
No, it's fair.
That's why you should have got another pitcher. That's why we kept talking about getting another pitcher. I mean, how long have we said it? Robbie Ray just won a Cy Young, and he was sitting on the market. A guy that Brian Cashman really, really liked when he was with Arizona. Never got him. He had a chance to get him for less than he would have given Verlander. Didn't do it. Rodon was sitting there post-lockout. You checked his medicals. Didn't sign him. The A's were giving away 3 pitchers apparently on the trade market. You didn't get either one of them. So Cincinnati was going through a little fire sale there. We could have, I know Sonny Gray reuniting with the Yankees probably would never happen, but you could have at least tried to get Castillo off of them, see if maybe they would pull back. They said they didn't want to trade him, but if you give him a good offer, they probably couldn't say no. We have the assets to do it, but it's just why they neglected the starting pitching market when we already know they wanted to get a starter and their only choice was the guy coming off of an injury. Tells us all we need to know about Brian Cashman. He doesn't evaluate talent very well, and the Yankees don't evaluate injuries. How many times has a guy gotten hurt and they say it's just general soreness, we don't feel like it's anything serious, and then he's gone for 3 months. So they stop being cryptic. Just tell us we're gonna be cautious. It's the spring. We need him for the season. We're just gonna sit him for a little bit until he's ready. What is the big deal if you say that? Because you telling us it's general soreness, we're not too worried, that's going to make us worried. Because every time you say that, something bad happens. It happened with Kluber last year. It happened every time Judge got hurt. They probably even said it after he got hit in the wrist. They're like, we don't think it's too much. And he was gone for like 60 days or whatever it was. Just stop being cryptic.
Yeah, it's like when you tell somebody don't look down, they're going to look down. If you tell a Yankee fan when it comes to an injury or a player not to panic, guess what? We're going to panic.
Because Cashman's mishandled injuries for as long as I can remember. Yeah, for basically the entire 2 decades that he's been in charge, he's mishandled injuries. I mean, just the most recent example is Corey Kluber. He's not pitched in a while, and then he ended up pushing him all the way to pitching a no-hitter, and then he was hurt right after that, and we barely never saw him again for the rest of the year. And Taillon kind of rushed him back pretty quick, and he got hurt at the end of the year, and he's been out an entire offseason. So, and now we've got Severino, and he's not played well in his Grapefruit League starts. I mean, he's walked 5, he's struck out 1, and he's given up 7 earned runs in 3 innings. So he's working his way back, and that's going to take him time. And because spring training's shortened, you're not going to get the length of time that you normally get in spring training. He's going to have to work it out on the fly. He's probably going to have to work his stuff out as the year goes on. This is not a computer game. It's not a computer game. As soon as their injury is up and they're good to go back to 100%. This is real life. His arm needs to be worked on and rested, and his stuff needs to be developed, and he needs to get his location together. All this, and you also have to bear in mind this has been 3 years. So all this means that the fact the Yankees have penciled in him as a number 2 starter, considering what they're saying that they're a win now team, I think it's absolute insanity. It's completely insane, and now you're seeing why.
Yep. Yeah, and the one spotlight in spring training so far, aside from the pitching, is one of the other acquisitions that that they brought in, and that brings us to we'll go around the horn, and what your take is on Marwin Gonzalez, because he's just killing it. Rob, you're at the plate.
I'm at the plate. He made too much sense actually for us to sign because we needed bench depth. Switch hitter, plays all over the place. I know last year he didn't hit. The last couple of years he hasn't hit, but that's exactly who the Yankees like to sign to these minor league deals. Guys who are coming off of bad years, and they say, well, you can kind of redeem yourself with us. They love doing it, and because of his depth, because of his ability to play everywhere, it just made sense, because we need it. Versatility all over the roster is important, and he's a guy that plays shortstop, plays third, plays second, plays first. We don't really, we need guys who can play first, and he can also play the outfield if needed in a pinch. So it's fine. I didn't think it was a bad signing at all, and I was like, there's a really good. Once they gave him number 14, I was like, he's going to make this team. Because they didn't give him 80 or anything like that. They gave him 14. Like that's a pretty low number.
That's a major league number. Yeah,
that's a major league number. And look, he's not going to be starting for us or anything like that unless there's an injury. Hopefully there's not. But look, if he can come off the bench and smack a few over the short porch, fine. That's fine. We're not asking him to hit 40 home runs for us and play 150 games. If he's just a bench piece and guy you can bring in for defense late in the game or start every so often if needed for a rest day, fine. It's better.
He's taking Tyler Wade's spot.
Right. Better him than Tyler Wade as far as I'm concerned. Tyler Wade would play too many games last year, and he had that one good spell for a week, and everyone's like, "See, there's the potential." But no, I'm fine with Marwin Gonzalez.
Donald, your opinion?
The fact that we're talking about Marwin Gonzalez for our offseason acquisition kind of shows what the Yankees did this offseason, which was absolutely nothing. So forgive me if I'm not going to get excited about utility guys. Hopefully you're not going to see too much of. Tyler Wade actually when he actually got extended playing time, actually played fine. But, I mean, listen, I'm not going to overthink this one or over-discuss this one. He is what it is. He's a utility guy.
But don't you think?
Okay.
Don't you think he's the perfect complement that can play multiple positions, that can kind of go hand in hand with LeMahieu being moved around with that which is their plan. I think
he's a bench player.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's still. It's going to, he's only going to be a positive on the bench. He's got the, he's got the winning drive. It's not like somebody that's just kind of sitting there at the end of their career. He's trying to revive himself. And for somebody, every athlete has that bravado, that swagger, that ego. And he's pretty much saying, I need to redeem myself, but I don't need to go jump right into the spotlight. I'll sit in the back a little bit, and I'll show that I can still do something. I think that's a good thing.
It's spring. He's playing for his job. I mean, we'll see.
But we can't knock the importance of having a solid bench piece, because how many times did we wish we had something like that last year? I'm not saying that this is going to be redemption for Brian Cashman. See, I got just Marlon.
No.
But no,
I don't think anybody's saying that.
Right. It's just a minor league deal that has a potential to be a good signing, because we need depth all over this roster, because we don't know who's going to drop the first week of the season. It's just whether it's bad performance or what. I want versatility on the roster, and he does that. We need guys that can play around the field, and he gives us that. So it was a good signing, and so far it's just a spring. We know that's not going to mean he's going to do that in the regular season, but I'd rather him on the roster than Tyler Wade.
I'll tell you who I'd prefer in the roster is Walter Cabrera. I'd prefer him to be given an opportunity. He's going to get playing time, and the Yankees don't have any plan for any of their top prospects right now, apart from Volpe, and he's in single A. So I'm just going to repeat what I said yesterday. I think that this was the ideal opportunity to start actually giving some of these younger guys playing time instead of relying on these veterans who are past it. Give an opportunity to some of these AAA players who look like they're on an uptick here. Florial is the perfect candidate to be a fourth outfielder. And you could certainly get him plenty playing time with Aaron Hicks' injury history, and give Cabrera an opportunity. These guys have upside. Gonzalez has no upside. I mean, yeah, if he gives you versatility and a little bit of pop, then fine. But I prefer to go with the younger guys because I'll tell you what, other teams tend to do that. Other teams aren't afraid to play their young guys. Tampa Bay aren't afraid to play their AAA guys, and Boston aren't. And guess what? They're a lot better than we are. So why don't we give an opportunity to some of our prospects, give them a run, and let's see what they got? Because I'll tell you what, there's going to be a lot of injuries this year. And there's going to be, because we're such an old team, a lot of heavily veteran team, then some of these young legs is actually going to benefit us. So miss me with the Marwin Gonzalez stuff. I want younger guys. I want to go with Cabrera.
Yeah, but then Cabrera would be sitting on the bench until somebody got hurt, and I'd rather him be getting his at bats in AAA before if he's just sitting. We know the Yankees call up young guys and they sit them on the bench. So would you rather have Oswaldo Cabrera sitting there for a week, or would you rather have him
to work down in the minors?
Well, I'd rather him getting at bats than Marvin Gonzalez because he doesn't give you any upside. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to play.
If he plays once a week, that doesn't really do much for him. If you see him once or twice every 10 games, because that's basically what Marwin Gonzalez is going to be, because they have a fifth infielder is Gleyber Torres. So they're going to have to move him around. They're going to move LeMahieu around. Donaldson will DH. Rizzo's probably going to play most days. So I'd rather it be Marwin Gonzalez, who's sitting on the bench and playing every so often, than Oswaldo Cabrera, who we know can be something for us as an everyday player. He's not going to be an everyday player as the sixth infield option.
But when is he going to ever be an everyday player with us?
When somebody eventually gets hurt.
Eventually. It's just such an old veteran team, man. I'm sorry. This team isn't going to win a World Series, is it, with all these veterans? So you might as well try something new. So I want to go younger.
No, and I don't think that you're wrong. I just think that, your point of view is not resonating with, it's I'm trying to think how to put it. You're not, you're not wrong, but we're not wrong either. There's no wrong answer to it. We'd rather, like I'm with Rob, I would rather Cabrera get his at-bats in the minor leagues where he can be an everyday player rather than just sit and rust on a bench waiting for the injury, waiting for a blowout game that they might substitute for him. I'd rather him continue his growth so when he does get that call that he's going to be playing every day, he's loose. He's already been playing.
I get that. It's not that I disagree with that, but the thing is, the Yankees have been peddling this philosophy for years. Oh, I'd rather get these guys every day at bats in AAA, and then we'll see. But they don't develop. The Yankees have not developed anybody at all. The only person they've developed is Aaron Judge, and that is fact. So if they just maybe amend their philosophy a little bit, I mean, they're basically blocking all these kids' opportunities. And Florial had a massive opportunity last year, and Brian Cashman basically dumped him or just used him as a 26th man a lot of the time, and that's kind of an embarrassment. So I'm sorry that I'm going to stick with this. I think that if you have Cabrera on the big league roster, he's going to learn more from phenomenal people around him. That might be beneficial for him, and the Yankees should be looking to get him at bats every 2-3 games. And I think that he'd be developed just as fine as he would in AAA, because a lot of our guys in AAA stay there, and then that's it, because the Yankees don't have a plan for them. So why not try something different? If it doesn't work, then fine. You got a million veterans, but it's just what I'm talking about is this kind of half-pregnant philosophy that the Yankees are just stockpiling rookies on AAA and don't use them. So I'm sorry, that's all. My only point is, why don't just maybe try something a little different? And then if it works, then it works. If Cabrera is better than the options that you already have, then you can move those options. that's another possibility. But I'm telling you what, the Yankees aren't going to be changing. I mean, you're going to see a lot of at-bats for Gonzalez.
I think once the season starts, I don't think you're going to see him in a lot of games. I really don't. I think he's just going to be a guy that gets to play once or twice a week. You know, that does, having Cabrera up here to do that does not help him growing. It doesn't. Unless you're going to be playing Cabrera every day, you're gonna leave him in AAA.
And he can't play every day here because you're not sitting Donaldson, you're not sitting LeMahieu for him, you're not sitting Glaber for him. I mean, he'd be the only one. Glaber would be the only one that you'd sit for Cabrera right now, because if you get last year's Glaber, then yes, then Cabrera probably deserves a shot over that. Yeah. But if Glaber takes what he's done into the spring, into the regular season, and we see, I'm not going to say 2019 Glaber, but if we see something like what he was in 2018, 2019, then that's a really, he was looking like the next best thing for us as well. So if we get that Glaber back, and there's that, again, he's the fifth infielder right now. They got to find places for him to play. So it's not like Marwin Gonzalez makes the roster and say, geez, we really need to get him in the lineup every day. No, he's taking up a bench spot. That's why I don't want Cabrera up here, because then it will be just like what they did to Florial last year. He's just there to take a spot. I want Florial playing every day. I wanted him playing every day last year. I was bringing this guy up before a lot of people were last year. I was like, give Florial a chance, and they didn't want to do it. So I know exactly what Donald is trying to say. He wants to see these young guys come up. But if they're being blocked, and right now Cabrera would be blocked by 5 other infielders on the roster, it doesn't make sense for them to have him on the bench just to play every so often. I'd rather him, in this case, the Yankees would be right. Let him play every day at different positions in AAA. So when we do need him, and we will need him, he's going to be able to play. But then we know they're going to call him up. He'll play well for about a week or two, and then they'll send him down. So
yes, that's exactly.
So I want him to have a sure spot on the team. That's where right now he doesn't have that sure spot. Had we not traded for Donaldson, then yeah, there's an open spot for him to play. And that's, again, goes back to the issue we had with the offseason. You made a move that you probably didn't need to make to get a 36-year-old third baseman when you had younger guys you could have used. It's probably the Donaldson trade that's kind of handcuffing from using these younger guys, because ideally Peraza and Cabrera would be ready right now. Volpe's not ready, but the other two certainly are.
You could have had Felifa play third base, and he's a better third baseman than he is shortstop. And then you could have gone and get Correa shortstop and job done. But listen, I'm more focused because it seems to be Cashman is on Cabrera, Peraza, and Volpe. Now Volpe seems to have a job lined up for him whenever he's ready. Okay, but that was not going to be for a couple of years. But there's actually 2 people that are already ahead of him in terms of readiness. Peraza apparently can play shortstop right now at this very minute for a big league club. How are they going to get him opportunities? If Volpe's got the shortstop job, it's basically handed to him. So then what are they going to do with Peraza? They're going to get Torres. If Torres is a good year this year, they're not going to want to move him. You've got, that's what I'm saying. It's just like you've got LeMahieu for a long-term contract. So these spots are tied up. And so I know what you're saying about Cabrera. Cabrera is really just an example of what I'm confused about. Is like they're basically they're stockpiling these guys and they don't really have a plan on using them. So I think all I'm saying is why not try and use them and then see what you got? Because I mean, just keeping them in AAA for an indiscriminate amount of time, which they've done with Florial, doesn't help anybody, and it doesn't help their development. So
you're right.
So
you're absolutely right. It goes back to what was their plan this offseason, because Brian Cashman yesterday was on the radio, or I don't know where they interviewed him, but it was a clip of him.
I wanted
saying,
to bring that up. Yes,
yeah. What did he say? That we didn't bring in a superstar because we have a lot of money on the books right now and blah, blah, blah. And then he also had to get creative this offseason. You brought in 3 players that weren't on the team last year. One of them's 36, getting paid $25 million a year. The other one was a guy you could have had pre-lockout because Texas had just signed 2 infielders, and the other one was an injured catcher. So that was creative, Brian Cashman. So if you didn't want to spend, why not use the guys you already have? You don't want to trade the prospects. Why don't you use them? You know, like
I'm so glad you brought up because actually I wanted to bring that up in today's show. Tats, did you listen to what he said?
No, I did not.
It wasn't good. It was
I know he spoke, and I'm like, I just didn't want to. I couldn't.
He said something about leaving something dry. I don't know what the heck he's talking about. Something dry for one more move, which we know is Aaron Judge getting extended. Yes. So he's trying to make it, maybe he's going to try to get a pitcher, which is still possible, but I don't see it happening when they're going to work on this Judge extension, which will raise the payroll even more. So he continues to harp on that high payroll despite where we know where that money's going. Again, you could have saved $25 million. You didn't have to sign the big player, fine, but you could have used that money you're giving to Donaldson for a pitcher and then other depth pieces as well. And you could have used a guy like Cabrera and still traded for Falefa pre-lockout because Texas was trying to move him clearly. And the Twins gave up a catcher to get him. Maybe we could have moved Sanchez there. We had chances to get catchers on the market. Tucker Barnhart was gotten for pretty little in terms of return. Jacob Stallings was traded. There were options out there. Cashman missed the mark on a lot of players that could have improved the team. And this was his idea of getting creative.
So, yes, Brian Cashman said that the current contracts that the Yankees are tied to is why they had to get, quote-unquote, creative this offseason. And then he started listing Hicks, Britton, Chapman. And I'm thinking, wait a minute. Am I in Bizarro World? Did some other GM sign these people? Cashman, it was you that signed them. Hello? You signed them, bro. You're listing your own mistakes as an excuse to not go and get into the greatest free agent market in the history of baseball, especially certainly in the modern era. And his excuse was to list all the guys, the bad signings that he made, as if it was somebody else that made them. Bro, it was you. And you have the ability, because you're the general manager, to move them if they were the ones that are blocking you, because it was exactly one point I made yesterday. If they're the ones that are blocking you from going to get better, then move them. Hello? It's like they're not all got non-trade clauses. You can move them, even if you only get a freaking box of Cheerios in return. Get those money, get some of that money off the books, and then you've got some flexibility. So I was so astounded when I heard Cashman saying that. I was like, what planet am I on right now? And then he used Hal's budget was an excuse again. He mentioned Hal's budget. Well, you know how he always invests so much in the Yankees, but even us as the Yankees have commitments that we had to make, and we didn't have the flexibility. And he said that, and then I was like, wait a minute. He said before the lockout that we had flexibility. That was the first thing that he said in his press conference at the end of the year. Brian Cashman said to everybody, he's like, we've got the latitude to make the moves that we need to make because ownership gives us the opportunity. But he always loves to push up ownership. But he said that we had the latitude. And now he's saying we didn't have the latitude. So he's lied to us. Again, and that's why I'm astounded that the media never picks him up on any of this. He gets away with murder here, man. He's lied to us multiple times. He's had the fans going round in circles, and it's unbelievable. And very few fans call him out on it.
From what he's saying is something you would expect to hear from a GM that just got the job. You expect that from like the Giants or the Jets that
like Joe
regime. Look, unfortunately, we're stuck with these contracts that we were dealt with. That we just we need to ride this wave. But when he's making the mistake, then he can't just. Who's he passing the buck to, himself?
Exactly.
He's a very smart person. Think about what you say before you say it.
Because he's got these people in his back pocket that listen to him, and people and the media are going to keep selling. Well, he's got a point. But now lately we're seeing a few more media people kind of call him out on his BS. But here's the thing is he had a chance to make this a really good offseason, and he didn't have to sign Correa and Freeman. And, but he could have given the money that he gave to Donaldson to Robbie Ray, right? Now we have a number 2 starter. You could have still traded for Falefa pre-lockout because the Texas Rangers didn't need him because they had just given out a ton of money to 2 infielders. You still could have made that move. You still could have moved on from Gary Sanchez because there were 2 good catchers on the market, and there still is 2 right now in Contreras and Murphy. And you still could have re-signed Rizzo. So you were willing to give Rizzo that money. You were willing to pay $25 million for Donaldson. You're already going to pay Falefa his $8-9 million that he's making in arbitration this year. And you could have still kept Gio Urshela. So you still would have had a really good infield. You did not have to spend for the big shortstop. And you improved your rotation. Your catching position is fixed. And you could still use the same outfield rotation you're using right now with Judge, Stanton, Gallo, and Hicks. And also you could have had a chance for a guy like Oswaldo Cabrera to play. Is that not an improved roster if they added Barnhart, Rizzo, Falefa, and Robbie Ray?
No, because I think that the fans would still be screaming that they didn't get Correa. They didn't, they missed out on other players because the fans are never happy, no matter what they do. We're so scorned from all these moves, all these contracts that are 1 year too many. It's not the fact that they signed Britton. It was a good signing at the time, but his contract is 1 year too many. Chapman, 1 year too many.
3 years too many.
Well, Chapman should never have been re-signed.
Exactly, 3 years too many for Chapman.
When they got him back after 2016, fine. But the second time, that's where it was like, all right, you made a mistake. Why did you do that?
But you know what I mean? It's everything. Gardner was here 1 year too many. Because that held back. That could have been Florial getting the experience last year.
Yeah,
it's funny that Brett Gardner actually said that last year. Remember, there was times where he'd actually go and he'd speak to Clint Frazier and Florial going, "You really should be you guys playing today, but you guys need to pick it up." I mean, I liked about Brett Gardner is he's always a team first guy. He's just obviously he was past that and he shouldn't have been re-signed. But what we're talking about this budget now because Brian Cashman basically said that we had no flexibility and they had to get creative, which makes me think about the Verlander offer. So we offer, was it 25?
25.
So say Verlander signed. What would that have stopped us from doing? Because
everything else.
Exactly. That's exactly it. So I don't think we would have been able to re-sign Rizzo in that case. Then LeMahieu would play first base. Because clearly we've got some sort of imaginary budget. I mean, the Donaldson money, a lot of it is being has been kind of counteracted by the money that we got off the books with Voit and Sanchez and those main contracts. Urshela didn't really cost us too much, but altogether, I think that is at least half of Donaldson's salary gone the other way. So that it's really not that much at all. So I guess. It's amazing. It just makes you think. Wait a minute. And so if they signed Verlander, then we basically wouldn't have been able to make any moves at all, because that's clearly what Cashman's saying to us. He's saying to us we didn't have any latitude. Yep. So what is it? Was the Verlander offer just an offer that he knew was going to be refused anyway? So he just made it. He made a bid just to make it look good. I mean, because he's never made a bid since. He's not signed. He's not made a bid for anybody that we know of. In the free agent market. So, I mean, what I came from what he was saying yesterday was he was actually trying to pass the buck to Hal Steinbrenner, because he kept saying Hal Steinbrenner has asked us to make sure that we re-sign Aaron Judge. He said that yesterday as well. He basically said Aaron Judge is the reason why we're keeping our ink dry for one further move. It's the Aaron Judge move.
Do you think that's the right move?
Well, what I'm saying is, he's putting it all on Hal Steinbrenner, really. When you listen to it back, he's like, Hal Steinbrenner had a budget, and this is it. And we just had to work within that budget. And it was all about how Steinbrenner is. And it was nothing to do with I'm doing this, I'm doing that. He's reading everything. He reads everything. He read the fact that ESPN gave the Yankees a D for their offseason, and the only people he signed was Tim LoCastro. And his very fragile ego isn't going to love that. So the very next day, what does he do? Oh, he comes out and he says that it's basically Hal Steinbrenner's budget, even though he basically told us pre-lockout that there was no major, budget issues. So it's these. That's the reason why I'm harping on this, is because we get the mixed narratives all the time. If you just give me one straight narrative, at least I can follow it. If you just lie to me every couple of weeks just to suit yourself, then I got an issue with it, and I've got major issues with this. I think it's just freaking terrible.
No, you're right. And think about it. They're the Yankees. Why couldn't they have fit one more move into there? They could have done everything they did and still signed Robbie Ray. And we're not talking about this offseason as being a complete disappointment. At least we got a number 2 starter, right? So, okay, you got your shortstop, you improved third base, you had to move on from some players to basically counteract that money, but you improved your infield, you improved your rotation, and you feel like this team is in a better place than it was going into this year in a better place than it was coming out of last year. Mm-hmm. You tell me you couldn't fit an extra, and you could still re-sign Aaron Judge, by the way, because you're the goddamn New York Yankees. And then guess what? Next year, Chapman's money comes off the books. Britton's money will come off the books. You can probably find a way to get Aaron Hicks, if he's healthy, off the books. Why? And then Rizzo's probably going to opt out. So guess what? You're not going to have to worry about his money. Why are we acting like we're broke? I hate using the term poverty because I hate when people say poverty franchise. But why are we pretending like we don't have money? The Yankees could field a $300 million payroll and make that money back within like a month in terms of tickets. If people want to see them play, they're going to go watch them play. And I don't care about the bondsmen you have to pay. Go pay them, because you're the New York goddamn Yankees. You're worth $6 billion. And you're talking about, well, we might have the second highest payroll. He doesn't even know where we are in the payroll. He didn't know. Yeah. Like, are we second or are we third? I don't know yet. You're not second or third. Who cares? It doesn't matter, because you could spend more because you're the New York Yankees. You can re-sign Aaron Judge. You could have gotten that number 2 starter. You could have gotten that shortstop, but guess what? You didn't have to, because you still improved it without doing it. You could have done all those moves. We just asked you for one more thing, and that would have been to improve the starting rotation when there were options out there. And it didn't cost you any prospects to do it. Just cost you money, which apparently we don't have, because the richest man in baseball doesn't want to shell out the money because he's got to pay bondsmen. This is why Yankee fans are angry. This is why we're mad. Because, yes, the team improved, but we know what we could have done had the ownership and the GM stopped pretending like we're a bunch of morons. We're not. We know what you're doing. You're trying to lie to us, but there are a lot of smart fans out there that see right through your BS, and it's starting to get annoying. Yeah, the team's going to be good this year, and they're trying to sell us on that. Well, we make the playoffs every year, but we want a championship every year. I don't want to keep saying 27. I want to say 37 championships. I want to be able to say we got 28, we got 29. I want to get to 30. I don't want to be stuck on playoffs. I don't care if we're making the playoffs as a third wild card team. It's annoying. Last year was a disappointment.
What you just said is spot on, man. All the money that's coming off the books next year, we're already past the luxury tax threshold anyway. So what are they worried about? Just go get the guys in. It's not going to block you in the future, because all that money's coming off the books next year. You don't need to spend $20 million on a closure next year. You've got Loizaga sitting there. He's going to cost you nothing. So it's like, what are they doing? What are they thinking? All that money is coming off the books next year. So just suck it up this year, and everything's going to be reset next year. You'll be back to where you want to be. It's just lies after lies. They think we're so stupid that we can't look forward to the next year. All the money is available to us at our disposal. Just Google it, and we can see how the payroll is. I mean, honestly, bondsman, shove the bondsman up your ass.
But that was just an embarrassment. you know, it's you know when you just say that one sentence too many, you know. And I have a lot of those moments during these shows where I just don't know when to just keep my mouth shut. That's Hal all the time, you know.
That was so New York. That was straight off the corner. That was straight off a Brooklyn corner with the newspaper. I'll shove the bondsman up your ass. He may have a Scottish accent, but he's a New Yorker at heart, people.
That's it. That's the old New Yorker in me there. Just came out.
Oh, God. I think that's actually a good time to wrap this up. So just remember, like, share, comment, and subscribe. Check out our social medias in the description. Check us out on sportinarium.com/player and on Northeast Streaming Sports on Roku. Enjoy your day. Wear your pinstripes for pride and play hard.